Hey folks, this is Kelani. With Season 3 of Battle for Azeroth starting up this week, we have a bunch of new content to sink our teeth into. The new Eternal Palace raid has opened its doors for anyone interested in plundering the latest raid content, but there's also a new dungeon with the Mechagon Megadungeon, and that's what we're going to focus on in this video. There's 8 bosses in total right now. It's a Mythic only dungeon, so that means no normal or heroic mode, but it also means no Mythic plus mode just yet. That will probably come a bit later on, but for now, let's have a look at how you can tackle each and every boss in the new Mechagon Megadungeon so you can clear through it without any issues for many weeks to come. You can find timestamps in the comment section below if you want to skip around the different bosses. You'll start outside in the Mechagon zone with a choice of 3 bosses, King Gobbermac, Ganca, and the duo of Trixie and Nano. I would suggest killing the bosses which are not currently being patrolled by the aerial unit, because the patrolling unit does make the encounters significantly harder. If you're curious, killing bosses which are being patrolled is required for the hard mode event, but we'll touch on that another time. Let's have a look at King Gobbermac first. He has one key ability that you need to manage, Charged Smash. This will target the tank when the boss reaches 100 energy, and every group member should help split the damage. Helping your tank survive the hit isn't the only important reason to stack for this. Each player who gets hit will gain an electrical charge. This deals damage over time, but you will also be able to power up the various pieces of stolen technology right around the boss. You're going to want to tank the boss in the middle of the pylons, split the charge smash, and then one player should run to each pylon. Ideally, you will have all 4 pylons powered for the majority of the fight, because that's going to make the adds completely trivial. The boss will summon a lot of little trog adds very frequently, and if you don't have the pylons powered up, they can overwhelm you very quickly. The pylons are the best way to deal with the adds, and honestly without them, I don't know if you could do enough DPS to actually kill the trog adds on your own. So be sure to share that charge smash, power up the pylons, and you shouldn't have any issues. The only other ability this boss has is Rumble. This is a large channeled AoE effect, so your healers need to be ready for that with a good burst of healing or just a healing cooldown. You will also see large swirls while this is going on, just don't stand in them and you'll be fine. Let's move on to Ganca. To spawn this boss you'll have to kill the 3 large slime trash mobs which have the Squirt Bot debuff. Be sure to clear all the trash around the boss area too, otherwise there's a very high chance you'll pull it during the encounter. This fight revolves around Toxic Goop, a nasty green AoE on the floor which you will want to avoid. If you ever get caught in the goop, you yourself will get gooped. This will incapacitate you until the goop has been killed, but it is also a dispellable disease, so if your healer can dispel disease, that works too. The squirt bots that you rescued will help clean up the goop, so the fight is kinda straightforward. You'll want to stay super close to the squirt bots as often as you can. The boss will occasionally throw goop out at random spots on the floor, just avoid them as best you can. He will also use Toxic Wave. This is a bit more dangerous. He pushes out goop in every direction. You'll want to be inside one of the squirt bots' little AoE for this ability, so you don't get gooped. He will also cast Coalesce, which is the opposite. All of the goop on the floor will get sucked into the boss. Again, just stand with the squirt bot and you'll be fine. The boss will also AoE your party periodically, and he needs to be tanked at all times, otherwise he'll start one-shotting your DPS. Stay with the squirt bots, DPS down any gooped squirt bots or party members, and this boss is fairly easy. Moving on to Trixie and Nano, this pair of Psycho Gnomes have quite a few interesting abilities. You're going to want to kill them about the same time, because if one dies the other gets a pretty hefty buff, and you need certain abilities from each of them to counter the other. Nano will hop on the mono wheel you see in the back, and he'll start driving around. Getting hit by the bike deals a huge amount of damage, so just watch out for where he's going to zoom past and try to avoid it. He will also use Roadkill, who will jump to a random player and deal AoE damage, so be sure to stay somewhat spread out. He also has a frontal cleave, so be sure to tank him facing away from your group when he gets out of the bike. Trixie will tase random players, dealing damage over time, but she will also sometimes use Mega Tase. This deals a lot of damage and stuns the target over 8 seconds, but there is a way to avoid it entirely. While the bike is in action, it will sometimes fart out an exhaust cloud. That cloud works like a smoke bomb, so it breaks all line of sight, something to be careful of if you're a tank or a healer, but if you get targeted with Megatase, you can stand in the exhaust smoke to completely avoid the attack, which you should do every single time it's being cast. Dodge the bike, dodge the Megatases, and kill them together. Easy peasy. The HK8 Aerial Oppression unit is one of my favourite fights in here. You'll start off by facing the Tank Buster bot, and that name isn't just for show. He's going to wreck your tank, literally with the ability called Wreck. This deals an insane amount of physical damage in 3 swings. Your tank has to have cooldowns ready for this, otherwise they're just going to get deleted. If you're having trouble, you can also have your DPS taunt and use an immunity, use things like Blessing of Protection and Bubble Taunt, make good use of your healer cooldowns too, everything you've got. This is really the only hard part of the fight. If your tank dies, well, I mean, there's not really any luck for the rest of you, is there? The Tank Buster will also use Fulminating Zap, which deals damage to your party over time. Not too bad, just heal it up. Little bots will also get teleported in as well, the Walkie Shockers. Just kite these around, root them, stun them, anything to keep them away from you. They can stun you and they deal a crazy amount of damage when they explode. When you kill the Tank Buster, you'll enter the transition phase. One of the 2 platforms will light up and a little gauntlet will begin. You'll have to make it all the way to the top pylon without getting hit by the bots, so you can start draining the energy. You only need 1 person up at the top to start draining, but the more people you have, the faster it's going to go. When you finish draining the pylon, the aerial unit will crash into the area you were previously in and start taking extra damage. It's just gonna sit there, so get back down there and dish out some DPS. After a brief period of free DPS time, the boss will take off again. Be sure to stay out of the fire effect while this happens, and then you're back to fighting the Tank Buster. Rinse and repeat until the boss is dead. Usually you only need 2 phases. Now, when we get down into Mechagon proper, you'll come upon an interesting arena with 2 tussle tonks. This fight is actually incredibly easy. You need to dodge all of the arena traps like buzzsaws and whatnot, and bring the Platinum Pummeler to the sides of the room. You can see little hammer devices which will pound down after you stand near them for a short duration. Make sure the Platinum Pummeler boss is inside of that area effect when the hammer comes crashing down. That will remove its platinum plating. Do that 3 times and you can deal full damage to that boss. Your tank should be able to taunt him over to the hammers to make it super simple. That boss will also periodically do a whirling edge attack, which is basically just a blade storm. Don't get hit by that, it does a lot of damage. He will also drop bombs on the floor, just avoid those as best you can. The other little boss, the No Mercy for You tank boss, will chase random players and charge at random player locations as well. You can actually get this boss to charge into the arena walls, and if you manage that, it will stun it for a really long time, but for the most part you can just kite it and DPS it down. Don't stand in the sides of it when it's using the flame vents, and it shouldn't really ever do that much damage to you. I would recommend killing the No Mercy tank first while you strip the platinum plating off the pummeler, and then finish the pummeler afterwards. Your tank isn't really needed for the No Mercy for You tank as far as I'm aware. Your DPS should be able to just kite it around while they nuke it down. A little further through the dungeon you'll come upon Cujo, the Scrap Hound. This is really another easy fight which revolves around cubes of junk. These will drop into the arena near random players and are super key to the entire fight. Literally, it's like the only important part. The boss will periodically cast Venting Flames, a huge channeled AoE ability that will kill you super fast. The only way to avoid it is to hide behind a junk cube, but the junk cubes don't last forever. They heat up and explode, dealing party-wide damage. A cube can only last for 1 full Venting Flame, so you have to use a new cube every single time. Always hide behind the newest junk cube that comes in for Venting Flames, and you shouldn't really have an issue with it. But there is also a tank debuff which needs to be dispelled called Blazing Chomp. You should dispel this before it gets too deadly for your tank. We usually got rid of it before it hit 3 stacks. When it's dispelled, it will explode, dealing damage to your party but also damaging any junk cubes near the tank, so your tank should never be near a junk cube while that debuff is being dispelled. Cujo will also leap to a few random players and deal damage, spread out a bit so you don't overlap, and this leap will also damage junk cubes if anyone is too close to them, so you shouldn't really be next to a cube until you're ready to hide for Venting Flames. Both the tank debuff and the leap can prematurely destroy junk cubes, which will leave you without cover for the next Venting Flames. Stay away from the cubes for the most of the fight, hide behind them for the Venting Flames, and you should be fine. Up next is the Machinists Garden. This is also a super fun fight, in my opinion. The boss doesn't really do that much in this fight. He'll just lob out some blue swirly bombs which disorient anyone who gets hit. Now that's actually really bad because the rest of the fight is all about dodging. You can't dodge very well if you just stood in place now, can you? There's gears flying through the air that you need to dodge, plants will pop up at the edge of the room that you need to nuke down as quickly as possible. Seriously, these little plants hurt a lot. Kill them off quickly, and then the huge fountain thing in the middle of the room is actually a spinning flame turret trap of death. 3 beams of fire will rotate around the room. Just be sure you rotate around the room with them or your goose will be cooked. It's a fun little run around, but overall it's actually really easy. Dodge all the things, DPS down the boss, simple. And then we have King Mechagon himself. This one is a bit more involved, but honestly it isn't too bad considering some of the other fights we've seen in dungeons and raids recently. The main thing to worry about is the plasma orbs. There will always be 4 of these and they'll chase players periodically. Just avoid the swirls for when they're moving, watch the arrows to see where the orbs will be moving from and to, and you should be fine. If you get hit you'll take damage and get knocked back, which really isn't ideal. Gigazap will target a random player and fire off a line of pain towards them. Spread out a bit and don't stand behind one another. Gigazap should only ever hit one player at a time. He will also take off sometimes, floating in the air for a brief period while using Cutting Beam. It's a laser pointed straight down that hurts like hell. And he will also start chasing a random player. Run away from him, just don't stand underneath him and you should be okay. If you're ranged, no problem, go to town. If you're melee, well, I guess you get to take a 10-second break or so until he decides to come back down. When you kill the aerial unit, King Mechagon will swap over to something a little bigger. Honestly, most of the fight remains the same, even though it looks a bit menacing. The orbs still chase you in the same way, Gigazap still targets one player, and only one player should get hit, though it is a bit larger when compared to the earlier version, so just be careful with it and try not to run around like a headless chicken. As a quick note, you can fall off the edge, so that makes it even more important to not get hit or knocked back by the orbs, and, don't walk off the edge, that would be silly. He will also use a Magneto arm ability, which plops down a big magnet in the room. That magnet will pull your party and all of the orbs towards it, so run against the pull, don't get hit by the orbs, and try to do as much damage as you can. The boss also needs to be engaged in melee at all times during this phase, otherwise he'll start to nuke your party quite hard. This one is a bit of a marathon, honestly. You need to kill him before your healer runs out of mana. The best way to do that is to avoid every ability that you can. Take as little damage as possible, only one person should get hit by the beams and no one should get hit by the orbs. I had a lot of fun with this mega dungeon for sure, and I'm looking forward to running it more and more to get our strategy super refined. I know a few essence upgrades are tied to the dungeon, and quite a lot of patterns drop there as well, so there's plenty of reason to go back each week. There is a hard mode for Mechagon right now too. You need to fight the first 3 bosses in a specific order, and then it changes the 4th boss to make it harder. I'm not too sure if we're still missing a few pieces of the puzzle though, as the last 4 bosses don't seem to have anything relating to hard mode right now. Only time will tell. I'll be sure to make another video detailing the hard mode of the dungeon, how to activate it, how to complete it, and whether or not it's worth all the effort. So stay tuned for that one. But that's it for the Mechagon Megadungeon guide, and that's it for this video. What do you think of the Mega Dungeon from what you've seen so far? Have you been able to hop in yet and get it done, or is it something you're maybe waiting to get a group of friends together for? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you want to join these lovely guys and gals, you can find a link in the description below. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.